Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today in First Chronicles chapter 4, as you're reading through the chapter, we get into more genealogies, and you have these different sons, you have these different fathers mentioned. It's just really becomes kind of like a list of names. But then you come across this man by the name of Jabez, and it's almost as though, his life was something worth mentioning, and something that the Lord didn't want to skip out on while going through this list. Reminds me of a lot of Enoch in Genesis chapter 5. There you have the same situation. They're going through the genealogies, and all of a sudden you have, a few verses dedicated to this man by the name of Enoch. Says that he walked with God, and it was something notable, and notable enough to speak about a little bit, even in amongst the genealogies. Well, this guy Jabez, it says that he was more honorable than his brothers, and so he had risen above his siblings. He had excelled, most likely in character, in the way that he lived before the Lord, spiritually. And it goes on to say and mention this specific instance when Jabez had called upon the name of Israel. And he basically asked for three things. He says, "Oh, that you would bless me, and indeed enlarge my border, and that your hand might be with me, and that you would keep me from harm, that it may not pain me." And then it goes on to say that God had granted him what he requested. Now, first point to be made here is that we ought to live the type of lives that are worth mentioning. What a wonderful thing it would be that as people were listing out genealogies and talking about this person being born and that person being born, and then they get to our lives, and to think that we would do something so notable that they say, you know what, let's stop the pattern of naming these names and say something about this person. What can we do in our lives to make us stand out among the genealogies? Also, what can we do to stand out among our peers? As Jabez, he not only stood out here within the genealogy, but also among his brothers. And so he did not settle for the spirituality, the character of the people around them, but rather he determined to excel and to rise above what everybody else was doing. That's something that we can take to heart. It's real easy to settle in and get cozy and be comfortable where everybody else is spiritually, and not to try to seek the Lord in a higher way. This can even be true among our church brothers and sisters. They might have attained to a certain level of spirituality, and so we might say, you know what, well, as long as I'm spiritual as everybody else around me, I must be okay. Well, we need to have a faith that prompts us to excel above everybody else. Not that we compare ourselves or try to exalt ourselves in an arrogant and boastful way. Absolutely not. But it's just that to the level of our dedication to the Lord, we shouldn't allow it to just stop at the status quo. We need to shoot far and above and beyond to give God our ultimate dedication and commitment, despite what other people are doing around us. But the other thing we want to make mention of this man Jabez was these three things that he asked for. One, he asked that God would enlarge his border. And this is something that we can pray for in a spiritual sense. A border represents limitation. If you have a certain amount of acreage on your property, you have a border to your property, a property line, and that's your limitation. You can work your side of the line all you want. You can build what you want. You can have whatever animals you want, but you are not allowed to do that on another person's property. There is limitation. And what we can do is speak to the Lord and ask him to expand our borders in the sense that he would uh, expand our abilities, our capabilities, and our gifts, and therefore eliminate our limitations, so that we will increase in fruit bearing for Him, in doing His will, and accomplishing His ultimate goal here on the earth. So we can pray this as well. Also, it says that he prayed that that the Lord's hand might be with him. In other words, God's hand would be there, probably to strengthen him and then also to guide him, but just to be there, generally speaking, just that God's hand would be with him. And we should pray that as well. In our endeavors and the things that we engage with or engage in this life, the situations and circumstances that we enter into, we need to pray that God's hand will be with us, to guide us, to strengthen us, to allow His presence to be there so that we can fulfill His will and what He wants for us in these various situations. But then lastly, he asked that God would keep him from harm and that it may not pain him. This had to do with him seeking God's protection. And, we need to also pray for God's protection. He is our loving Father in heaven. And as such, we can pray for protection. Protection from evil people that may be around us. And also protection from the evil one, from Satan and those that work for him in the spiritual realm, as Ephesians chapter 6 speaks about. But we can pray these things and have confidence that God will grant our requests, as He did for Jabez. And so let's just think about those things today. Let's think about rising above our peers, rising above others, having or living a life that's worth mentioning. And then also that we would have similar prayers to Jabez, that God would eliminate many of our limitations, that He would expand our abilities and capabilities of doing His will, that He would be with us to guide us and to strengthen us, and that He would protect us from evil, both of a physical nature and a spiritual nature. Well, hopefully these thoughts were helpful to you today. I thank you guys for listening in. I love you guys. Hope you have a great day. God bless.